The other interesting thing, or one other interesting thing for me, for Vrabel, he was asked, and I think we talked about this last week. I know I talked about it with Felger and Maz. Abdul Carter may be in play at 4. We got that report Monday night that the Giants are going to have a second workout with Shedeur Sanders, which to me probably means ownership went down the hall and said, what's all this talk about us not taking a quarterback? Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Tim Robinson, are you sure? So what? Maybe Abdul Carter's in play at 4, but there's been these pieces that are out there that maybe he's not the best guy in the locker room. Maybe he's not the most motivated player.
Sure, Sanders or Abdul Carter?
Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter.
I keep blanking on the name of the reporter who does these pieces every year. But he talked about how, I'll get it in a second, like Abdul Carter's not a great guy during the week. Basically knows how talented he is at practice. So
who said that?
Yeah. So he doesn't have to do as much at practice, but he shows up on game day.
Bob McGinn or something
Bob
like
McGinn.
that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Bob McGinn.
Oh, I nailed it.
You did. Yes.
Awesome.
Bob McGinn.
Rare win by me.
Talked about Abdul Carter not being great during the week in the sense that he doesn't necessarily get super into practice.
So he's Bo Jackson. Remember Bo Jackson?
Well, if he's that talented, if he's truly that talented, then yes.
Yeah, I hope so. Bo Jackson famously was like, yeah, I thought practice was a waste of time.
Well,
Just give me the ball on Sunday.
He also had to rest up from playing 2 sports. But the idea being, like, would the Patriots take Abdul Carter if he goes to 4, if he doesn't fit this culture they're trying to build? And they've been so culture heavy this offseason. And I had talked about it with Felger and Maz. I don't remember if we had this conversation that basically, well, you can look at this one of 2 ways. On one hand, this is why you build a strong culture. So the handful of players that maybe aren't who you want them to be personally, you bring them in and a high tide lifts all boats, and the building will morph them into the player you want them to be. Bill did that time and time again for years. It didn't necessarily work out every time. Pretty solid hit rate on it, though. The flip side is, well, it's a lot easier to do that once the program's established, as opposed to in year 1 where you're still building it, and literally your first ever draft pick for this regime, that guy's going to hold some weight in the building. Would they do it? Wouldn't they do it? Mike Vrabel was basically asked, not specifically about Carter, but I think the question was, I have it right here. Basically, would you take a risk on a player who doesn't necessarily fit what you want in the building?
Yeah, it was an interesting answer, I thought. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what he meant, but yeah, if you could reread it to me.
So the question was, does that translate, talking about football character? Because Vrabel had been talking earlier about how football character was important, and he wouldn't talk about Abdul Carter's top 30 meeting, but he did say he loved the film. So does that translate? Does football character translate to the draft? Or do you feel like because you brought in guys like Morgan Moses, maybe you can take a risk in the draft because you feel like your locker room's strong? This is the big question when it comes to Abdul Carter. Vrabel, well, we don't want to take risks. I mean, we think we want to be aggressive, and so they want to be aggressive. I'm reading it in the way he was speaking. There's a difference between taking risks and being aggressive and adding quality players and people to the roster. That'll happen throughout player acquisition. I think that's something that's important, but certainly the talent of the player has to be evaluated first. Then you go through a lot of the exercises and conversations and just try to figure out the type of person. You can't win and you can't do what we want to do with just a bunch of good dudes. That's not going to get it done. So to me, what that means is we don't want every player to be an a-hole. We don't want every player to be a dink, but there's going to be some good players that are dinks, and we need good players. As long as he's not too far gone, we're going to get to know him. As long as he's not too far gone, yeah, if he can play, we want him here. And from what I've heard about Carter, and I wasn't at Penn State, I didn't cover him there. I wasn't in the locker room. I haven't talked to the kid. Just on the outside looking in with the same information everybody else has, yeah, I think he's a bit of a different guy, but I don't think he's somebody that's so to that extreme that he's untouchable. If he was, I think we would have heard that by now. And so I think that answer dismisses concerns that the Patriots would pass on Abdul Carter for character reasons. That's how I read it. That's how I interpret it.
Well, here's the thing is that Abdul Carter showed up every game. He wasn't a guy that took games off. I think that's sort of what happens when you have a guy that's known for not like dogging it in practice, not putting all the work in. Like those guys are pretty inconsistent on Sundays. In addition to that, if Abdul Carter is a little bit of a loafer in practice, but then he gets 2 sacks every Sunday, like, great, you'll take it. And yeah, on the Vrabel part, like, I don't think Vrabel would be overly concerned with that thing. I don't think he'd be overly concerned with Abdul Carter specifically. I think he probably feels he could get through to him. But at the same time, I think, like you said, like I think he accepts that like not every guy is going to be perfect, and we got to bring in. They're not going to be perfect people. Like there's going to be little complications on the inside here, and we just have to work our way through that and do the best we can as a team. And like I think Abdul Carter's talent is such that like if he shows up on Sundays, like I think they could put up with a little bit of a pain in the ass during the week as long as he's a Pro Bowl, all pro caliber player potentially. Like I think that's the reason why maybe there's questions about him slipping, but at the same time he only took 4 visits. He doesn't think he's going to slip past 4. Like I don't know, maybe
barely took the 4th visit.
Yeah, maybe there's something new. Maybe there's something new in the reporting that I haven't heard about, but like they don't feel like he's going to slip past the 4th pick. I feel like if he gets to the Patriots, I think Mike Vrabel's going to say, we're taking this player. I don't care that he has a bit of a reputation for being pain in practice. I'll talk to him. We'll get through to him. He's going to show up on Sunday. We need good players. Let's do it.
And just to tack on to something you said that, you put up with him during the week if he's producing. I think that's some of it early on. I also think there's an element to what you just said of, well, we're also, we think we can not just mold him as a football player, but mold him as a person and get him to, maybe he's never going to be Matthew Slater, but get him to where he can be the kind of example they want a guy they're taking at the top of the draft to be.
Yeah, we don't need Bible study with Abdul Carter.
Well, I just meant like, is there a better, if I'm thinking in my mind, best teammate, right? Yeah. Best leader, best all that. It's Matthew Slater. That's who the guy is.
That's true. Devin McCourty.
Devin McCourty would be another good one. Yeah. That's, you don't need him to be, that's like saying, we're, Drake May, we don't need him to be Tom Brady. We think he can be really good. There's a pretty sizable gap between being really good at quarterback and being Tom Brady. Yeah. Right. Devin McCourty, Matthew Slater, those are like the Tom Brady's of leadership. So is Tom Brady. Fair. Anyway,